This question comes from Brandon. He says, I think Tony Lippett is our best DB. Do you agree? He was our least targeted corner last year. So I think Tony Lippett and what he's accomplished throughout his career from his first year in the league in 2015 and his jump to his second year is a significant leap, and I don't think a lot of people are looking at it in that light. When you look at what he was in his first year, he was an unpolished product. He was a receiver transitioning to corner, and you almost never see that work when you get drafted and you played receiver in your entire career basically at Michigan State at receiver, and then you got to change your position once you go to the highest level of football on the planet Earth. You almost never see that translation work. And when you saw his first year in the league, he was basically playing off of athletic ability and instinct, basically. And he was an unpolished corner. Technique really wasn't there. You jump to his second year, and the dramatic leap that he took is insane to me. There's that great quote from Bill Polian. When you look at a player, it's his first to second year jump. And Tony Lippett's first to second year jump is insanely good. What did he do in his second season? And he didn't even start all 16 games as a starter. He came in a relief role because obviously we were so banged up in the secondary. He would never have gotten playing time if it wasn't for that. And he just completely balled out. Obviously, he led the team in interceptions, and he was the least targeted corner on the team. There are certain things that he still needs to work on. Obviously, he's not the greatest tackler in the world. Even though he gives great effort in the running game, he's not good in that aspect of his game. Those are some of the things he needs to improve on. Open field tackling has been a really big struggle for Tony Lippett. He struggles against smaller, quicker receivers. We saw that against New England. Those are some of the things he needs to work on. But other than that, his jump from year 1 to year 2 is insane. I don't think it's such a dramatic step up from where he was at his rookie season that you just have to be excited of where Tony Lippett is going. From that standpoint, I can't wait to see what he does in his third year in the league, and obviously his offseason that he's had. It has been a revelation. How good the secondary has looked so far this offseason. Now, granted, none of them have been in pads yet. Training camp has not started yet. They were all in, shorts and t-shirts, and that's when you want to see your skill position players and your cornerbacks play at their best, and they did play at their best. Tony Lippett balled out so far this offseason. Hopefully he can continue that into training camp and throughout preseason and carry that into the regular season, which I suspect he will because he works hard, and you see that in his game. He worked so hard after his first season in the NFL to become what he was in his second season. You just have to expect that from his third season. So hopefully we continue to see dramatic leaps in his game, and I expect he will. Is he our best corner on the roster is the question. No, I think Xavier Howard is the best corner on this roster, and I think a lot of people are going to be really surprised what number 25 has to offer in 2017. But Tony Lippett, I expect great things from him this upcoming season. And another narrative to keep your guys' eye on is Byron Maxwell. He's 28 years old. Not a lot of people were happy with his slow starts. His last 3 seasons in the NFL have been super slow starts. It's going to be a quick trigger now because of the talent behind him. And it's going to be a little bit easier to let him go. So I think something to keep your eye on and a narrative to keep your eye on is if Tony Lippett does make another significant jump in his game, I would not expect Byron Maxwell to be a Miami Dolphin in the 2018 season. Again, Tony Lippett, I think you should expect great things from him and another dramatic leap in his play. And let's move on to the next question. This question comes from Bang Squad Gaming. He says, do you think Rashad Jones will have a comeback year after all those injuries? Absolutely. When you think of the 2015 season that he had, I mean, it was insane. I mean, the man had 2 pick sixes, one against the Texans, the other one against the Titans against Marcus Mariota. I can't remember how many interceptions he had. He had a ton of interceptions. His tackles, he had 130 plus, which was insane. I think that was the best year safety has had in some time. When you look at his Pro Football Focus ratings against all the other safeties, he's been a top 5 safety in terms of that for many years, not just the 2015 season. Basically, since he got into the league, he's ranked as among the top safeties in the game. He's so versatile. He can play free. He can play strong. You can use him as an extra linebacker like a Dayon Buchanan in Arizona in the box and just really let him be a linebacker. In the 2015 season, our linebackers were so bad and just unhealthy, for God's sakes. We had to use him as an extra linebacker. So he played safety tweener linebacker for most of the season, and he was elite at it. He was insanely good at it. When you look at his coverage when he's in the box, he's not just another, he's not a safety who you put in the box and he's like, okay, he's just a run specialist. No, he can drop back as an extra linebacker underneath, and like Landon Collins did last season, who he was really successful at it, and be a ball hawk. Like the versatility, and then he can free roam in the back as free safety and be elite at that. So his versatility is unmatched in the NFL. I don't think you can find somebody like that. Thomas is really good at it. Obviously, Eric Berry. I don't think Eric Berry can be the box safety that Rashad is. I think Rashad's just on a whole nother level in terms of that. I think he's the best versatile safety in the NFL. I don't even think it's close. Absolutely, I think he can come back off of the injuries and keep up what he's doing. Before he got hurt last year, obviously the game he had against the Steelers was insane. That safety duo between him and Issa Abdul-Quddus was something to behold, and it really sucks that Issa, injured his neck. But I would expect another Pro Bowl season from Rashad. He's playing with a better secondary than he had last year. It's more experienced. Everybody who last year should take a huge step this year because the players are so young. And I would expect great things from him. This is the best talent that he's had around him, and I think that's going to allow him a little bit more freedom in the secondary. So I would expect big things from one of the best players in the league and one of the best safeties in the league, in my opinion. I would expect another Pro Bowl for old Rashad Jones. This question comes from Ronald. He says, Skaggs, do you think Miami signs TJ McDonald to a long-term deal in the offseason, or do you think it would be better to draft a guy like Derwin James? So we've been hearing great things from TJ McDonald. So this is a report from MiamiDolphins.com. Former Rams safety TJ McDonald made his debut for the Dolphins this spring and will be a force when eligible to play during the second half of the season. He's big, fast, and looks like he works very well next to a healthy Rashad Jones. McDonald can play equally well in center field or close to the line of scrimmage, which gives the secondary more flexibility down the middle. So TJ McDonald, obviously from that report, it's just gushing reviews. He's played magnificently so far this offseason. Obviously he hasn't put pads on yet, but so far looks pretty dang good. So if he can keep that up he's going to get a ton of reps in training camp. So we're going to see him a lot in training camp. That was also a report from Pro Football Rumors. You're going to see a lot of TJ McDonald to get him as many reps as he possibly can to prepare him for the season. So hopefully we see that in preseason. This is a tough question because you're only getting a small sample size of TJ for only 8 games. So hopefully he plays well enough in those 8 games, and if he does play well enough, I think the Dolphins should sign him for a long term, because I do expect great things, and if he can keep that up, that kind of play up from those reports, then yeah, I think we should sign him for a long deal. If he can be that versatile and be that big physical tone-setting safety that we need, especially I think he's going to help us tremendously in the run game. I think he's going to dramatically improve our run defense. He is a physical safety. He's really good in between the tackles there. Something that Issa Abdul-Quddus was not good at. He's not a physical imposing safety. Vance Joseph said he was versatile. I didn't ever see it that way. I thought he was just a great post safety. I thought he was a great free safety. He was skinny and really he wasn't durable, obviously, but so I think when you look at TJ McDonald, the man looks like a Cam Chancellor. Like, that's the kind of safety we're getting here. He's physical, and he's good in between the tackles, like the report says, and he's good in center field. So I think that's going to help out the Dolphins' run defense. Issa Abdul-Quddus really was not good in between the tackles, and he wasn't good in the run game like I think TJ McDonald can be. Dramatically improve our run defense, and I think he's a good coverage safety as well. And he's super smart. He's a vet, and he's super talented, and he's still young. So I think it would be wise if he plays well enough in the small sample size that we're going to see. Then yeah, I think we should give him that extension, because in this upcoming draft, in the 2017 draft, or excuse me, the 2018 draft, I think the guards are going to be really good, and or the offensive line is going to be really good. I think we should hopefully, again, this is all hypothetical. Hopefully Isaac does well enough, but if he does, and obviously Dramon's going to retire, so we're going to have a hole anyway. I think we should get a guard in this upcoming draft. So yeah. So, and then obviously there's defensive line. Who knows what's going to happen, but I think guard is going to be a focus for the Dolphins in this upcoming draft, because the offensive line prospects are pretty dang good, and hopefully we have a late enough draft pick so we can, it makes sense to do that. This question comes from 99. He says, our guards. Crap you played last year led to a horrible start. Look into your crystal ball and tell me as of right now, on paper, are our starting guards better than the starters that played in Pittsburgh in the playoffs? Yes, they are. I think the offensive line in general is better. Brandon Albert couldn't stay healthy last year. Even when he was playing, he was clearly not healthy. Brandon Albert was a liability. The years that he was here, he just really didn't know. And he lost us a lot of games because of our offensive line was just never consistently healthy, and it was terrible. Obviously, the whole unicorns thing and how good we played with them. I think we only lost one game with the unicorn starting, and that was against Aaron Rodgers, and we should have won that game. Line, obviously, very important to this team. And durability is very important to this football team. So do I think our guards are better than they were last year? Yeah, absolutely. We added way more depth. Our lineup goes deeper than it did last year. We don't have to rely on Dallas Thomas and Billy Turner, even though we cut them early in the season. Our depth is just tremendously better. Anthony Steen, who was a godsend last year, he proved that against the Seattle Seahawks. The man was just thrust into the starting lineup, and he did as good as a job that I think beyond anybody thought he would do. So our lineup goes deeper than it did last year. The starters are the question mark. Larson or Isaac Asiata. Obviously, they're the starting. They're going to earn the job for different reasons, right? The question marks we have with Ted Larson is, can he stay healthy? Can you stay healthy for a 16-game season? I don't think he's the athletic freak that Isaac Asiata is. I'm not saying Isaac Asiata. That's the wrong word I should use. I don't think he's the athlete that Isaac Asiata is. I don't think he adds anything he's just a solid, good to okay starting guard in the NFL. He's nothing special. Isaac Asiata, on the other hand, has real potential, but is he ready in his development to be a starting guard for 16 games in the season? He's going to hit bumps in the road. He's a rookie, so that's a problem there. That's the only problem I have with the guards. And when you look at Jermon Bushrod, again, good, solid starting guard in the NFL. Obviously, he made his transition from tackle to guard last year, which he hit some bumps even though he's a vet. And I expect, at least better play from him on a more consistent basis. But yeah, I would say our guards are better than they were a year before for sure. I don't think you should worry about it at all. Obviously, they're going to have one heck of a test in the first game of the season against Gerald McCoy, who moves all around the offensive line, and he's going to be a load to deal with. And hopefully, there's something about Isaac Asiata, and I think hopefully we see some growth there in training camp and preseason. So he's a player that you guys got to keep your eagle eye on. But yeah, I think overall the offensive line is better. When you look at the bookends, we have some of the best tackle combinations in the league. Laramie Tunsil is a future superstar in this league. He was the AFC East Rookie of the Year, which was pretty tough to win last year. The Patriots had a pretty good offensive lineman as well. And then you look at Juwan James, who had his best season last year. Even though he had his ups and downs, he was still inconsistent. I think towards the end of the year, he really tightened up there and built some consistent games those last few games. So I would expect our offensive line and even the interior of the offensive line to be much improved because the lineup goes deeper than it did last season. This question comes from Jonathan Diaz. All right, man, it's crunch time. Training camp's starting soon. My question is, if Devontae Parker has the year everyone thinks he's going to have, what do you think will have to happen to Juice, Stills, and Parker? As much as I would want to keep all three of them, when we talk about big wide receiver contracts, 3 is a crowd. So there is a lot that goes into this, and you're absolutely right. 3 is a crowd. All 3 of them are bell cows as receivers. All 3 of them you can run your offense through. Kenny Stills proved that in New Orleans, where he had almost 1,000 yards and a ton of catches and a lot of touchdowns. I think that was his second year in the league. Juice has obviously proved that over his career. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL. And Devontae Parker has yet to really prove that. He's got big question marks, but we've seen flashes of talent that he can be a bell cow in an NFL offense as a receiver. So I'm going to keep Kenny Stills out of this. Obviously, Kenny Stills, we got locked up. We got for a whole lot cheaper than we thought we were going to get him for. Everybody thought he would be priced out of Miami. So he's locked up. I'm not worried about Kenny Stills. Obviously, the Dolphins have him in the future. And they have said, the Dolphins organization has said before we get into all this, quote, we want to keep all 3 of them. We want to keep the offensive nucleus together. That's what the organization said. So their plan, if they're telling the truth, is to keep all 3 of those guys together at all costs. So I think this is between Devontae Parker and Jarvis Landry. Now, if you're not familiar with this, on this channel, the fans on the channel have been talking about this in the comment section below. It's been a hot topic on this channel, and it's a great, it's my opinion, it makes a lot of sense. Are the Dolphins not paying Juice Landry giving him the long-term deal that he deserves because they're waiting to see what Devontae Parker does this upcoming season? Are they waiting to see if Devontae Parker fulfills the prophecy that he is this great receiver that we've seen, but he just can't stay consistent, he can't stay healthy? So if he does that, if he has a full healthy consistent season and he's a dominant outside receiver, is that what they're waiting for? To choose one, to pay Devontae Parker or Jarvis Landry? That's a great question. That's a great. I think. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the slot receivers, which Jarvis Landry is, are not looked at in the same light as a dominant outside receiver. It's like, who would you rather have? Would you rather have, Dez Bryant or Julian Edelman? Those are the two. I mean, that's the difference between an outside and a slot, and just in layman's terms, right? So you have that. There's that. Is that true? We'll see. A lot of sense to me. I mean, it does make a lot of sense, and it worries me. So for me, if I was the GM of the Miami Dolphins, and I looked at Juice Landry and I looked at Devontae Parker, let's go through some of the pros and cons of both players. Pros, okay, let's go through Jarvis Landry first. The thing that I would notice with Jarvis Landry is production and consistency and durability. What we've seen from him for the first 3 years of his career, he's broke the record for most receptions by a receiver in his first 3 years, which is insane when you look at all of the insane pass catchers, great pass catchers. Marvin Harrison, Marvin Harrison doesn't even have that record. Do you know how many catches Marvin Harrison has? Terrell Owens, he was a catching monster, has the record for most catches in a single NFL game. Jerry Rice, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Those guys were ball hawks at receiver. Jarvis Landry has that record. He's a bona fide superstar, and he's proved it over his first 3 years. So we know that he's consistent and he's productive. He's the last 2 years back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons. His catching stats off the charts, obviously, with that record. Second thing I look at Jarvis Landry that's a huge pro to me, dominates the field he's in. He is the best at his job. When you look at all the other slot receivers in the NFL, he is the gold standard right now in the NFL for that. There's nobody else I could go out and get that would be better than Jarvis Landry. He has by far the most yards out of the slot than Julian Edelman, I think T.Y. Hilton, who does line up in the slot a lot. He has more yards than him out of the slot. Obviously, T.Y. Hilton lines up on the outside, so that's a little bit of a gray area there. But nobody else has more yards out of the slot than Juice Landry. So he's the best at what he does. He's the best in his field. So that's another pro. The other thing, he's so durable. Jarvis Landry, if you look at our injury reports over the last 3 years, do you know how many bad shoulder injuries because he lowers his shoulder so much that Jarvis Landry has had and he's played through? The man can play through pain, and he's so durable, and obviously we know that. I don't think he's ever missed a game in his 3-year career, so that's invaluable to me. As a fan, and if I was looking at him to give him this long-term deal, I know that he's going to play the entire deal out. He's not going to miss a year. He's extremely, extremely, extremely durable. Yeah, he's one of the biggest leaders, and if not the leader on the offense, and one of the biggest leaders and one of the biggest proponents of changing the culture in Miami to a winning franchise. Winning comes first, and Jarvis Landry makes sure every player in that locker room knows that when you come and you put on the Dolphins uniform, winning comes first. That has not been, it's been so long since we've had somebody that vocal about that and doesn't tolerate anything else. Adam Gase can't be in that locker room all the time. Adam Gase, when he leaves the room, Jarvis Landry is another Adam Gase, basically. He expects nothing less than winning. So that's another reason I love Juice Landry. The only negative about Jarvis Landry is touchdown production, which I don't really consider a negative. That's something when you're paying him, you look at, it's been pretty low throughout his 3-year career. Touchdown production, really not there. And the second thing I look at is he's mainly a slot receiver. So he can't dominate a game like an outside receiver could. So that would be the two negatives with Juice Landry. DP, when you look at Devontae Parker, what are some of the positives and negatives with Devontae Parker? There's a lot of negatives. First of all, he's not durable. He can't stay healthy. The injury history in Devontae Parker is obviously long, and it's unfortunate because of the talent that he is. The work ethic. Obviously, the Adam Gase interview that he did, I think it was a press conference, he really went into Devontae Parker, and his work ethic was not there. Not a leader. Devontae Parker is a very soft-spoken dude. If you've ever seen an interview with him, he doesn't like talking that much. And obviously all the reports, he's not the biggest leader. Obviously he's a great teammate. You see that on the field. Anytime somebody scores a touchdown, he's over there hugging somebody. So those are the negatives with Devontae Parker. He's not consistent. He's not durable. And he's not a leader in that locker room. So if we got rid of Juice Landry, I mean, we're losing a lot there. And the positives of Devontae Parker is the unknown future of Devontae Parker. He is a great run after the catch receiver. I mean, if he can stay healthy for a 16-game season, he is the best big 6'3". He ran a 4.4, almost a 4.3. He is the best run after catch big man receiver in the NFL. If he can just stay healthy for a full 16-game season, we've seen that. He can dominate a game. He can take over in a game. He's so talented. He can just take over a game. Unless you double team him, I don't even think you can stop him then. He's one of the best 50-50 high point guys in the NFL. So those are all the positive things. But there are so many negatives. But that is for you guys to decide. Who would you get rid of? Would you get rid of Devontae Parker, or would you get rid of Juice Landry? On the whole Devontae Parker versus Juice situation, it's so hard to pick between the two. I can't wait to hear your guys' opinion on it. Do you think the Dolphins are waiting for Devontae Parker to bloom and then give him the money and then let Juice go? Or do you think they're just trying to find a way to keep everybody together? Because they did publicly say that, and I hope that's the case, because I love Devontae Parker. I think he's a tremendous talent. I think he's going to be a number one wide receiver in this league. And I love Jarvis Landry. Probably more than any other player on the team, because he is everything that I would want a Dolphins player to be. So let me know what you guys think about the entire situation. And that has been your Miami Dolphins fan Q&A for this week. Remember, guys, if I didn't get your questions in, I will get them in the Miami Dolphins podcast. I literally answer every single question in that podcast. And it's a podcast, so we have all the time to sit there and have that conversation. And again, in the fan Q&A, it's a little bit harder to get everybody's questions in because it is more of a structured video. If you don't like the podcast, you don't like the news you need to know about, you don't like the AFC East news you need to know about, just scrub through till about 25 minutes into the podcast and you'll have all of your questions answered there. So that has been your Miami Dolphins fan Q&A for this week, and I am Skax1083, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright, so let's get through the rigmarole before we get into the Miami Dolphins podcast. Remember, guys, this podcast posts each and every single Wednesday. The first segment of the show, we go through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. The second segment of the show, we go through all the AFC East news you need to know about. And the third and final segment of the show, we go through the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A.